A massive protest has broken out tonight in Minneapolis as people are fed up with ICE and the Trump administration. Now, as you know by now, Renee Nicole Good, a mother of a 6-year-old, is no longer with us because of ICE and their tactics. And this is just a flashpoint. This is just the boiling point for people, and it's clear. Check this out. Look at this sea of humanity. All of these little lights up and down this street, and that goes on for blocks. That's people taking to the streets because people have seen enough from ICE. We've seen their tactics. We've seen how they've been enforcing the law and immigration. And now it has come to this. Now we've lost a person who should be here. A child should have their mother, but they don't. And make no mistake, the officer's not going to be held accountable. This is going to be justified. You can bet on that. The only accountability will come from us. In November, we have to use this as the moment. This is the launching point here tonight in Minneapolis that we go forth and we say to the Trump administration, no more.
Wait. So now you want accountability? Now you're protesting government overreach? Where was this energy during the campaign when your community leaders were holding press conferences endorsing this exact administration? When they promised you'd be the good ones? You thought voting with the people screaming about criminal immigrants would keep you safe? That somehow your community would get a pass? That's not how this works. That's never how this works. You don't get to cheer when ICE raids those people, then cry when they come for your neighbors, for your family. And now you want the rest of us to save you in November? After you helped put them in power? The audacity is stunning.
I see these headlines and I have to look at them twice because even though I shouldn't be shocked, I'm still just going, oh my gosh, it's never ending. The Small Business Administration announced today, Friday, January 2nd, that they are halting payments to some 7,000 recipients of taxpayer money going back to the pandemic because they believe that it's fraudulent, to the tune of $400 million. Now, I had to do a double check because I'm like, wait a second. This isn't autism. This isn't daycare centers. This isn't transportation. This isn't housing stabilization services. This isn't feeding our future. This is pandemic era PPE funding that people were still receiving to the tune of almost $500 million. Right now, any single program here in Minnesota that is receiving Medicaid dollars, taxpayer dollars coming from the federal government to go to social services, every single program needs to have their payments stopped right now. I get it. This is going to be and could be devastating for those individuals that need those services, but we're beyond the point of messing around at this point in time. Every single one of these programs should have the payments stopped until they are fully investigated. We need hundreds of individuals on the ground here in Minnesota to determine exactly which programs aren't fraudulent and to begin charging the individuals who are responsible for perpetuating this fraud. Instead, what do we get? We get Democrats holding press conferences with individuals who are a part of the community.
Oh, so now we care about freezing federal funding affecting our communities? Funny how that works, isn't it? When it was food stamps for other people, you stayed quiet. When it was healthcare cuts for lazy people, you nodded along. But freeze your daycare funding, your autism services, suddenly it's government overreach. And yes, there was fraud. Feed Our Future, $250 million. Minnesota prosecuted 70 people. They were handling it. But you voted for people who don't care about nuance, who see fraud in Minnesota and use it to justify gutting everything, not just fraud programs, all social services. You wanted tough on crime? Congratulations. You got it. And now your programs are on the chopping block. Turns out collective punishment doesn't check voter registration first.
Attempting to go and discredit the fraud that's going on, even though it's right there in the open, blatant, in all of its misspellings for everybody to see. Listen, when I went on vacation, I never anticipated that I would be coming back after 2 weeks to the level of news that we have to share about just how broken the state of Minnesota is under Governor Tim Walz and Democrat leadership. I hope you'll tune in starting on Monday, 6 until 9 a.m. Central Time on the iHeartRadio app, and you can always get caught up on the podcast also on the iHeartRadio app, and follow me on whatever platform you're enjoying this video on. Thanks.
Up for their rights. Now, what we see in ICE as of recently, some of us know this, some of us don't, and some of us just completely deny reality, but there are hate individuals getting into ICE and being recruited by ICE. And what's even more disgusting is these recruiters who are also recruiting these people are posting, white nationalist fucking phrases, neo-Nazi fucking phrases. It's sad and ridiculous that we even live in this day and age. 2026, people. 2026. And a lot of you people embrace this shit. This is disgusting. Very fucking disgusting. But, whatever, right?
What Trump supporters are doing will absolutely disgust you. They are taking to social media to dox guess who? Watch this video.
Can we talk about the school that Renee Good had her 6-year-old son in for a second? We're talking about a literal activism factory disguised as education.
That's right, they're posting the name and location of this innocent child's school all over social media. They are monsters.
They're doxing a 6-year-old school, a child who just lost his mother, and the people doing it, your side, the people you voted for. White nationalist recruiters and ICE, documented, not conspiracy, and the base celebrating it online. This is what you endorsed. This is what you voted for when community leaders said, trust us, it'll be different for Muslims. It won't. It never is. Because once you empower people who believe in ethnic hierarchies, in good immigrants versus bad immigrants, you will always end up in the bad column eventually. That's the nature of bigotry. It doesn't stop. It just finds new targets. And you helped give them the keys.
We're here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where thousands of Americans are turning out to protest Donald Trump's lawless ICE raids. If you are seeing this video, then heck, we've done a good job breaking the algorithm, because God knows social media doesn't want you to know what's happening here in Minneapolis, but here we are nonetheless. While you're here, hit the follow button, drop a comment, hit repost, and join us as we continue fighting every step of the way until the end of this godforsaken regime.
This is Minneapolis. Am I the only one that sees the irony here? That the people that love immigration and hate the immigration customs enforcement are now building a wall, making a border, if you will, to keep out people that they deem are a threat to their safety. I don't know, that's pretty ironic to me.
Listen, I want to thank personally here to the Somali individuals who brought food, whether it's, samosa, malawah, tea, all sort of things, to the people who are attending these demonstrations in Minneapolis in support of the Somali community, but also, of course, the poor lady who got shot by ICE while she was standing up for her Somali community in Minneapolis. So let's keep that up. Thanks.
The recent spike in active shooter situations have been committed by individuals who identify as trans.
You're drunk and you're a liar. Where'd you get that stat? Pull that out of your ass? Yeah, a couple have been trans, including apparently today's. But what the fuck does trans have to do with anything when it comes to active shooters? It doesn't. That's just you peddling your hate. Now, I'll tell you what a vast majority of these active shooters do have in common. Are you ready for it? White, hetero, Christian, Republican, males. God damn! This is you guys. You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about it. Y'all always online, spanking it to your weapons and going out and doing mass unalivings of soft targets, no less.
Every shooting, they check identity first. Trans, Muslim, immigrant, blast it. And some of you shared those posts, amplified that fear, used it to justify voting for tough policies. But when it's statistically what it usually is, white male shooter, suddenly it's mental health, lone wolf, video games. You participated in that distraction, that fear-mongering. And while everyone's arguing about identity politics, an ICE agent shoots a woman in the face. In your community, the culture war you bought into, it was cover for this. For militarized enforcement that doesn't distinguish between good minorities and bad ones. You were useful until you weren't.
We have some serious news right now coming out of Minnesota, where according to initial reports, ICE has shot a United States citizen. We don't have many details, but according to Senator Tina Smith, she writes on Twitter, quote, a U.S. citizen has apparently been shot by ICE agents in Minneapolis. According to Ilhan Omar, who posted on Twitter, she says that the person shot was likely a legal advocate or a legal observer. According to NPR News, a eyewitness told the news station that she heard ICE agents telling a driver, a woman, to get out of here. She was trying to turn around and the ICE agent was in front of her car. He pulled out a gun, reached across the hood of her car and shot her in the face like 3 or 4 times. That's according to Emily Heller, a witness that spoke with NPR News. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, says that he is aware of the shooting. He is demanding ICE leave the city immediately. It's very early. We don't have any more information other than this right now. I will continue to provide you updates as we get more information. So spread the word and follow along stay up to date on all the news you need to know about.
I have to start this video with an apology. A lot of times there are really viral things going on in the news cycle that I don't actually talk about. And I do have a lot of comments from viewers and a lot of DMs asking why I haven't covered certain things yet. Other than the fact that it is just me, I'm still a freelancer and a full-time Zumba instructor, and I still got the hubby and kids to worry about. A lot of times when I don't cover something, it's because I'm waiting to get the entire context. I don't necessarily like putting information out there if I don't have a full picture as to where it's going, especially when there are a lot of pieces to put together, like this whole thing with Minnesota. There is a history there that really needs to be fleshed out so that we can understand the context of what is happening right now and what the Bone Spurs administration wants for the future. Now, we all know, and most of us have been waiting for the Bone Spurs administration to start attacking Minnesota. Why? Because the governor of Minnesota is Tim Walz. And being that Bone Spurs has a vindictive attitude towards anybody who has ever gone against him, Kamala Harris's running mate was definitely on that chopping block. He was just waiting his turn. And so was the state of Minnesota. Now, during the campaign, and specifically the debate with Kamala Harris, Bone Spurs demonstrated a willingness to go against Black-presenting immigrants, as well as the Latino population, out of the blue, saying that the Haitians in Springfield were eating cats and dogs. Y'all remember that? But he didn't say too much about the Somali population during the campaign. And the leaders of the Somali population actually had his back, not only holding press conferences to announce their endorsement and vote for him, but encouraging their people to do the same, putting their anti-Blackness on full blast. Now, the largest Somali population in the United States is in Minnesota, with 80 to 100,000 Somali people in Minnesota. Many of them came into the country as refugees in the 1990s and 2000s after civil war broke out in Somalia, and benefiting from the equal opportunities that Black people paid with blood, sweat, and tears. They were able to come over, get loans, get an education, start businesses, and even run for office.
The Somali community in Minneapolis came as refugees, built businesses, raised families, became citizens, and then some of your leaders looked at the current administration, the one calling immigrants vermin, talking about bad genes, and said, yeah, we'll endorse that. Put anti-Blackness on full display. Thought proximity to power would protect you. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Because here's the thing about voting for people who campaign on ethnic hierarchy. You will always be lower on that hierarchy than they are. You can vote with them, endorse them, defend them online. Doesn't matter. To them, you're still the other. And when it's politically convenient, you become the target. That's the lesson here. Learn it or keep repeating it.
Like I said about the videos that I made about the Somali leaders, they were able to skip to the end and reap the benefits, especially in a progressive state like Minnesota. But in recent years, Minnesota has been uncovering a litany of fraud cases. But it cannot be overstated that these fraud cases are not specifically and only the Somali people, even though some Somalis and Somali businesses have been involved. The most notorious fraud case that most people will remember is the Feed Our Future fraud case. Now, the leader of that organization was actually a white woman named Amy Bach, and she was charged and convicted of defrauding the government of $250 million. This was during the pandemic when she claimed that she was feeding children meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that she wasn't actually feeding them. The meals didn't exist, and neither did the kids. 70 people from that scam were prosecuted, including Somali people and some other local business owners who were working with her in the scam. And other scams have been happening as well, to the tune of billions of dollars being defrauded from the government by the misuse of at least 14 different programs since 2018. Once again, it is important to say that not all of the scammers and not all of the people who have been arrested or convicted of these crimes are Somali. And these crimes have been investigated and people have been convicted and sentenced from 2022. So it's not like Tim Walz and the government body in Minnesota were doing nothing. They were actively convicting the people who were committing the fraud. And this is even backed up by a Fox News segment where they had to admit that Tim Walz had asked for more power from his legislation to deal with the fraud issues that were going on in Minnesota. And the legislation denied him those powers, essentially tying his hands. Now fast forward to after the totally not suspicious at all National Guard attack in Washington, D.C. After that extremely convenient attack, Bone Spurs started spouting rhetoric not only of darker-skinned immigrants, but also of Muslim people. Once again, he went back to basics, fear-mongering about Muslim people and the darker-skinned immigrant population. And this was his perfect chance to start targeting Tim Walz and his state. Because again, Minnesota has the largest Somali population, who are dark-skinned immigrants with Muslim faith.
Feed Our Future. $250 million fraud, 70 people prosecuted. Leader was Amy Back, a white woman. Somali business owners involved, also prosecuted. Minnesota handled it. The governor you helped demonize during the campaign, he asked for more power to fight fraud. Legislature said no, so fraud got prosecuted anyway. Under existing law, successfully, but that didn't fit the narrative, did it? Easier to pretend Democrats were letting it slide while you voted for people promising to clean it up, except they're not cleaning anything. They're using real fraud cases to justify collective punishment, and some of you cheered for that during the campaign. Finally, someone tough on crime. Well, how's that toughness feeling now, when your community is the one getting cleaned up? Consequences, they're real.
For him, that target was perfect. So he immediately started ramping up frozen reject operations there. And when he got wind of all of those scandals, it fanned the flames even more. Because then they had something that they could actively fearmonger about and dangle in front of their ridiculously gullible base to make their base agree with the things that they were about to do in that state. So they started targeting the Somali community by not only frozen people operations, separating families and arresting and detaining people, many of whom are actual U.S. citizens, but they started accusing them of rampant fraud. And this is where Nick Shirley comes in. Nick Shirley is a 23-year-old MAGA influencer, and he has really leaned into all of these accusations about the Somali community. Accusations about them defrauding the government when it came to giving meals to children, as did some of the Somali businesses who were already convicted in the Feed Our Future case, accusing Somalis of having fake daycare centers, as well as fake centers for autism, saying that they were paying parents kickbacks to just claim that their children went there so that they could get the government money. But at this point, Nick Shirley decided to focus on the daycare centers. And his videos about daycare centers supposedly showing fraud there went instantly viral, being shared by the couch-friendly VP himself. Now, Nick Shirley would go to these businesses during the holiday season between Christmas and New Year's. As someone with a child in daycare, I can tell you that the hours during that time is not always stable. So he was going to these daycares saying that he was going during the hours of operation, when sometimes he would arrive there before the daycare opened, or at another time when the daycare was not supposed to be open. For the daycares that he did arrive while they were open, a lot of the time he would knock on the door and he would have multiple people with him. Not only the camera person, but also other people that were out of the shot. Again, as someone with a child in daycare, I can tell you that they do not open that door for everybody, obviously for the sake of the children. So when he's coming there with a camera and like 5 other people in tow, it is really obvious that he is pretending to have a kid he wants to enroll so that he can gain access to that place. And I'm not gonna lie, 20-something-year-old white men do not have a good track record when it comes to schools. Just saying. So a lot of the times they did not open the door. They also didn't want to engage, because even though these people think they're being slick, they're really not. And people can peep their game pretty early, especially with the rhetoric that was already coming out before he started doing that. But because of their reaction, it gave him ammo to cut his footage in a way that seemed like they were being suspicious. So when his videos came out, local news stations started talking to the Somali community to get the real story. And one of the local news stations caught up with one of the accused daycare centers and even saw footage of that daycare center on the same day that Nick Shirley had arrived with his crew. Children were actually going into the daycare center before he came and afterwards. And they told that news station that they did not let him in because he had other people with him, and they were worried about the safety of the children in that facility. Understandably. But in Nick Shirley's videos, orchestrated to make it seem as if the Somali community were guilty of things and trying to paint that picture that the entirety of the Somali community are fraudsters. He even had people on the left questioning the Somali community because his videos and that rhetoric spread much faster than the local news stories, even with the infamous Fox News having to debunk that story. And I'll try to have those clips, not only of Fox News, but also the local news clip on the end of my YouTube and Substack. Sometimes YouTube will strike me with a copyright if I put it on my YouTube, but it will definitely be on my Substack. So follow me in those places if you haven't already, and you can see the clips that I am quoting here. Now, Nick Shirley, like I said, is MAGA. So he wasn't doing that for any type of save the children, anything like that. He doesn't care about that. They never do. The reason why he was doing those videos is to demonize the Somali community and to also call for the arrest and prosecution of Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's old running mate. For anybody that is confused, MAGA is never on the right side of history. They never actually care about the things that they want you to think they care about. They have zero track record of actually being decent human beings. So for the people on the left who were amplifying Nick Shirley's findings without waiting to see what the full context was, we need to be way more careful. And that is why I didn't talk about it when all of that stuff was happening, because I did not trust his reporting enough to re-report what he was saying. There could very well be more people committing fraud in Minnesota. But Minnesota was doing a very good job at rooting out that fraud. The only reason why people knew that fraud was there to begin with is because Minnesota was prosecuting people for fraud. They were doing that already during the Biden administration while Tim Walz was governor.
Nick Shirley showed up with cameras during Christmas week, knocked on daycare doors with a crew, got refused entry for obvious safety reasons, and you shared his videos. See, they're hiding something. Fraud everywhere. Even after local news showed kids going in and out, even after Fox News debunked it, you kept sharing because it confirmed what you wanted to believe, that your community was different, that the real fraudsters were someone else. So you helped build the narrative, gave it credibility, amplified it. And now that narrative is being used to justify freezing federal funding, revoking citizenship, targeting your neighbors. You helped sharpen the knife. Don't act surprised it cuts both ways. Propaganda works because people like you spread it. Remember that.
So to say that they were allowing rampant fraud, as Nick Shirley tried to say, while he was calling for the prosecution of Tim Walz, is lunacy. Because the only reason why we know about it at all is because of Tim Walz and the prosecutors who went after those people who did those things. But that type of rhetoric, those types of videos that go more viral than the videos that debunk them, is why we are seeing the issues that we are seeing in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now. After those videos came out, Bone Spurs started with his usual rhetoric, of course, ramping up frozen reject operations, saying that he wanted to revoke the citizenship of the naturalized citizens and revoke the green cards of the immigrants who tried to come over the right way, even of the ones who have committed no fraud. He even tried to stop all child care benefits, not just for Minnesota, but also for Colorado, California, New York, and Illinois, citing fraud and the fact that there needed to be an investigation. He tried to do that and a judge blocked him. But he's not done. Bone Spurs has canceled food assistance programs in Minnesota, which include SNAP benefits and other food assistant benefits, claiming that there is fraud. He is trying to use this whole Somali situation as a reason to cut off federal funding for people who need it, not just for Minnesota, but across the country. And don't think that that's by accident. Don't think that that is a situation that he just came up with because of claims of fraud and the need for an investigation. No, this was already written in the P2025 handbook. You know, the one that we knew about before the election, the one that he denied he had anything to do with, and then immediately hired all of the people who had something to do with it, including his couch-friendly VP and Voldemort Steve Miller, into his cabinet. Yeah, they are still trying to implement P2025, and they are using any means necessary to do that, including mis- and disinformation about the fraud that is or is not going on in Minnesota. These days, admittedly, it is very difficult to figure out what is actually going on because we have so many different factions working from so many different directions that even our friends and allies are not friends and allies.
Citizenship revocations, SNAP cancellations, child care funding frozen nationwide, using Minnesota fraud as the excuse, even though it was already being prosecuted. And some of you voted for this, thought it would only hurt bad immigrants. Thought your papers were safe, your status was secure. How's that confidence holding up? Because here's reality. Once you give government power to revoke citizenship, freeze benefits, and target communities based on ethnicity, they don't stop at the people you don't like. They keep going, and eventually, they get to you. That's not theory. That's happening right now in Minneapolis. You voted for the leopard. Now it's eating your face, and honestly, the rest of us tried to warn you.
It is extremely important to keep your cortisol levels low and your critical thinking skills high. We are not going to win this war by mindlessly sharing things that we see. And everybody, including me, is guilty of that. But it is something that can be extremely harmful, not only to one community, but to everybody. But if you know me and you've seen my previous videos, you know that I have no love whatsoever for the Somali community that voted for this mess. Those of y'all who didn't vote for this, Godspeed. But for the ones who voted for this, FAFO. But what we are not going to do is spread misinformation about the entire Somali community that is going to end up hurting everybody in the country. We need to be better than that.
Minneapolis MAGA supporters thought they'd be exceptions. They're not. You don't get to vote for cruelty, then opt out when it targets you. That's not how consequences work. The lesson? When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Not when they promise you're different. Not when they say you're the good ones. Because to them, there are no good ones, just useful ones. Drop a comment, sympathy or consequences. Like, share, subscribe. This is Mind Mirror. Welcome to reality.